Hello, football fans, and welcome to another edition of Grump's Lunch Break. Been gone for a while. Sorry about that. Was really sick unexpectedly. I was literally getting ill while as a guest on somebody else's show. So unforeseen hiccup. Trying to make up for lost time here, so I'm going to be pumping out a couple of videos in a row. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so that you can get all those videos when they come out, because I will probably have them up faster than I can promote them. In any case, let's get right into it. Defensive backs. This is pretty much going to be safeties for the purposes of this ranking system, but there might be some guys that might be suited more for a slot corner, maybe are half of a linebacker as the position changes throughout the NFL. Whatever. You get the idea. Day one prospects. I have these guys listed as fringe day one prospects. The way I grade these, as a reminder, is I grade their talent, not where they're going to go. At the end of the first round, if you're picking in that slot, somewhere like sometimes in some drafts, and I think this is going to be one of those drafts, when you're picking at like 18 or higher, you're just picking someone that you don't want to miss out on by the time you're in the second round, or you're kind of reaching more on upside or something like that. So these guys are fringe. I think they're actually day two talent. I think that they are not special enough at their position to be day one, but there's a lot of upside that could put them there, and therefore I think they might be worth a late day one pick. I think they're probably going to be day one picks. But these are the two guys, Brian Branch from Alabama and Sidney Brown from Illinois. These are my fringe day one safeties / defensive backs. We'll start with Brian Branch first. 6 feet, 190 pounds. The first thing that stands out is that he has excellent speed. 4.58 is pretty fast for a safety. The other thing, the highlights for him are true safety highlights, right? Natural ball skills. You'll see him high point things to intercept them, to break apart passes coming from across the field. He has that good closing speed to do it. The other thing is he looks really good on the attack. He looks good closing in to make tackles in the run game, blitz the quarterback. He knows to jump up and get his hands up to block down passes. He does a really good job of that as well. He'll look good in an attacking style defense. He's built for that. The thing is, I would like him to get tighter in coverage. In his man coverage stuff, which comes up from time to time when you are blitzing, he gives up too much cushion for my liking. And I think at Alabama, you can get away with a lot more of that than you can in the NFL, because just talent disparity, and just I think it's just rare for NCAA quarterbacks to have the wherewithal to, under pressure, throw a deliverable ball. It's just less likely into tight windows. The NFL, these are the 30 best quarterbacks that the world has to offer right now. So yes, they can do that. So in those scenarios, I would like to see him tighter in man coverage. I think it's something he can work on. I think it's also something you can scheme around if you wanted to. I don't think it's going to take away too much from his value, but I do think at 190 pounds, there is a lack of strength that's evident on tape. There are times when he can knock the shit out of people, and he does, but they're usually already kind of wrapped up by somebody else, and he just comes in to deliver a finishing blow, or he does that typical DB thing where he goes low and guys can't hurdle all the way over him. He's just knocking a wide receiver over that's also 190 pounds. At the NFL level, I think he's going to need to add strength. I think he's going to have to work on his hitting as well. But he's a versatile DB that can get some line of scrimmage work. He can be back deep as well. I think that he is going to be a very promising prospect. I just don't think he's going to be an NFL superstar. He might one year be like a Pro Bowler where he leads the league in interceptions or something, or turnovers if he gets forced fumbles and sacks. But I don't think it's going to be a consistent thing with him where he leads the league in some kind of stat. I think he will probably be a multiple time Pro Bowler. But, those Landon Collins was selected at the top of the second round and was like the defensive player of the year in 2016 or something like that. So when I say that he's not a day one guy, don't get too defensive. Sidney Brown, on the other hand, is another one that's fringe day one. Let's talk a little bit about Sidney Brown, who is my favorite safety DB to watch in this draft. From Illinois, 5'10", 211, incredibly fast. 4.47 speed is nuts. That is free safety, single high safety level speed. Maybe in today's NFL we want to start getting that down closer to sub 4.45. But, I mean, what are we talking about here? Hundredths of a second? I'm sure it's fine. This dude is a natural athlete and an electric playmaker. He's just got to learn how to play the position better, understand the position better. Not that he doesn't understand it or play it well, but what you have is a wild child out there. He is all over the place, all over the field. When those plays go well, you have flashes of Troy Polamalu levels of just energy and just playmaking ability. I mean, like, you think about those old flashbacks of Polamalu jumping over the line of scrimmage and making tackles. Not quite that level. I mean, we're not talking, again, this is a fringe day one pick here. Troy Polamalu is a special talent that's easily recognizable. But it's not far from that. This is like Troy Polamalu light. It's not jumping over the line of scrimmage, but it's coming from across the field to make tackles, things like that. Right now, what you have is someone who's a little bit more raw than that. He's still understanding things. And right now, you can see he can overrun, he can overcommit at times. He just gets a little too excited. Now, at the college level, he has that 4.47 speed to rely on to help him make up for that. And you'll see in some of the clips down there of literally examples of that. But you also see, first of all, you have the want to. You see examples of him coming from the other side of the field to make tackles. That kind of leadership, that kind of dedication to the game, that's somebody who is, I mean, that's incredible. You don't see stuff like this from every single player. In fact, you don't see it very often. I mean, it's no judgment to see guys jogging it when it's on the other side of the field and keeping their contain. It's very rare that you see somebody just always chasing a play, always chasing a play. I think that his downhill skills, he's got good ball skills. Again, just natural with his timing, his jumping ability to go up and break apart passes. He's very good at it. I think he's got to refine it, but it's one of those things that makes him versatile. You see him come downhill and make these insane plays where he's just blowing people up. Or you see like there's like a pile of guys and they're trying to bring the running back down, but no one's trying to get a penalty. And all of a sudden you see this flash of blue come from the other side of the screen and then the whole pile collapses. That's just him going in there and ending the play. It's just how he operates. You see that and you're like, wow, this is a downhill box safety. He's going to wreck people, be good in the run game. But then you see him, the way he is able to break passes up, in coverage, and you see the versatility there, and you're like, oh my God. If he really truly learns the safety position well under a good safeties coach with good defensive backs playing alongside of him that communicate very well, and he understands the defense, and you get that with a good coordinator, a good scheme, and you've got that communication and other good players, he could very quickly become a star in this league. I think if some of those pieces I mentioned are still in flux, still being put together on whatever team drafts him, it might take him a couple years, but I find it hard to believe that Sidney Brown is at any point going to disappoint the team that got him unless there's some injury things that happen. And he might, as he develops, burn teams. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to probably see once or twice in his rookie year, if he gets field time, him overrun or overcommit on a play and have to chase. And it might be a back-breaking play. You'll probably also see him go in for a big hit and not wrap up. And, the Derrick Henrys of the world just aren't going to go down that way. And he'll learn. But with all the physical tools, all the mental intangibles that he has, and just the way he recklessly throws his body about, I don't think there's another guy quite like him in this draft. And while he's not quite there to be the number one safety in this draft, I think his ceiling puts him there. Moving on to the rest of the day two guys here. So you can see Brian Branch, Sidney Brown. Jamie Robinson from Florida State, I think, is one of the more impressive safeties out there that's not being talked about enough. I think he's super responsible. He is consistently in good position. I think he has great speed at 4.59. He's excellent in run support, really excellent, a really good form tackler. He really likes to mix it up, which you like. So I saw him at the Senior Bowl, and I saw him doing one-on-one man cover drills. He was probably one of the more grabby of the guys that I saw, but he's also less likely to be in those press man coverage situations, I think, at the next level. I think he does well back deep. I think that he does well in the box as well. I just don't see him being in that scenario a whole lot. So I'm not really too worried about him being a little too grabby, but he does need to be a little bit less grabby. I do think that he's really, really good at coming downhill. Like I said, he likes to mix it up. He's good in run support. He's a good form tackler. I wish some of that form would go away. This is a weird thing to say, but I wish he would be a little bit more on the attack, more like Sidney Brown, because I think sometimes he does, sounds silly, but too good of a job in breaking down and chopping his feet when coming downhill so that he doesn't get juked. And sometimes he does it when he has the advantage. You have a guy who's coming out of a spin move. He can't even see what's coming. He just does it all the time. And he can, I don't want to say struggle to make tackles because he'll still pull a guy down, but he'll be pulling them back about 3 yards with him. So it's like, you'll see what I mean on tape. But if he came downhill sometimes and just really laid the wood, he'd stop them in their tracks. Maybe they would lose some yards. You never really know. He might jar the ball free. I just wish he came with a little bit more oomph. And I don't know where to place this, right? But he played at Florida State. It's a team that has not been good for some time now. And he's one of the few guys that you could see in his body language getting frustrated with the defense giving up first downs. So I watched a couple of games where offenses were just matriculating down the field, and you could see he's one of the few guys actually getting frustrated about it. Now, I don't know, and this is something that you'd probably have to do an interview with to get an understanding, if he's the kind of guy who's a blame other guys kind of guy, or if he's the kind of guy who's a hold other people accountable kind of guy. Now, I don't see him out there clapping and getting in people's faces. That would be very indicative of a guy that holds other people accountable. But I also don't really know a whole lot about him having trouble on the sideline or calling guys out or anything like that. So I don't think he's a shithead either. But I think that maybe there's some captainship that you can get out of him as well. It's just something I noticed. I'm not really sure. I have him as a day 2 guy. I think he's going to be pretty good for this league. Whatever team grabs him, I think in his first year he could earn a starting spot. Not 100% sure that he'll get it, but I think he has a good shot to earn one. Jair Brown from Penn State, 5'11", 203. Like this guy a lot. Maybe a bit too tight in man coverage, but he's a key physical piece in an aggressive attacking defense that Penn State has. He's a downhill player, hard-hitting attitude, blitzing ability, obviously. Sticky coverage guy, like I said, maybe a little too tight. He has a pretty good understanding of zone defense, and I think that he might be a too high safety kind of guy, or he might end up fitting as like a nickel DB or a box safety, or maybe that like third big safety kind of thing. Oh, he's not big, but that third safety alignment. His 40 time, the 4.65 thing, I just think if he's only got to handle half the field or cover a tight end or something like that, or be in the box, that's going to be fine. But I think that rules him out as a single high safety, which just, I don't think it's a problem. Like, I think there's very few of those guys. I just think it knocks his value down a little bit. Day 2, still think he's going to be a key piece for whatever team takes him. Texas A&M's Antonio Johnson, day 2 guy. I think that this is developmental depth, but with a lot of upside. So I could see him going a lot earlier than I have him projected here as like the last ranked safety or defensive back on day 2. I do think that he'll go before that because he has great length and height, right? 6'2". He has great speed, 4.52. 40 time is incredible. I think he's athletically gifted. I think he's got the right temperament to develop into a starter. He just needs some refinement, and he needs to add some bulk. Like I said, 6'2", but 198 pounds. That's too light for me. It's pretty evident on film. You can see him struggle at times. I'd like to see him get up to about 210 at least. At 6'2", I'd like him at 215, minimum. But, you take what you can get. That might take away from some of that 4.52 speed. But the refinement stuff, I mean, like guys having to hit the weight room, that's kind of normal, I think. But refinement stuff, Just little things that will go a long way, and it will transform him from a good safety with high upside to a potential superstar. I mean, this is a potential Pro Bowler, in my opinion. He just tends to overcommit sometimes. He gets a little too excited. Sometimes he takes some bad angles, and he can get burned a little bit. He can make up that speed, but it's sometimes 8-7 yards that you didn't need to account for. That lack of weight, in addition to tackling and stuff like that, he struggles to get off of blocks. So strength, but also just hand fighting, shedding blockers, little moves like that, they're going to go a long way to making him a better safety. I think also his natural tendency to, because like I said, he has that right temperament to play safety. I think his natural tendency to try to lay the wood is a little bit too much. He needs to wrap up more. I know this sounds counterintuitive. This sounds counter to what I was saying about Jamie Robinson, but it's a little different. Like, this is a guy that's always coming downhill. He just should wrap sometimes, use your arms. Sometimes he's just kind of throwing a shoulder. And I think a lot of that comes with being undersized. I think when you're stronger, you're more confident in your ability to use your whole body, use your arm strength to pull people down, stuff like that. Don't let them get away. But I do really like Antonio Johnson. I do think that he will need to develop. He can get burned if he's a starter year one without really earning it. Flipping it over to day 3 now. Jordan Battle from Alabama. I actually really, really like Jordan Battle. 6'1", 209. I think he's pretty darn fast. 4.55 40 speed. That's pretty nuts. This guy is a physical enforcer. I think he can play back deep if he needs to because he does have some pretty good speed, but I think he really shines letting that 6'1", 209-pound frame do some talking. I think he has a really good understanding of coverage responsibilities. I think he has good play speed. And I think, like I said, he's a physical enforcer. He's excellent in run support. I think he can punish guys who want to come over the middle. Might get him in trouble at the NFL level. We'll see. The rules change all the time, so I don't want to rule. I like having a guy like that, patrolling the middle, striking fear in it. And even if you get the penalty the one time, you might rethink the way they have their offensive strategy. I'm not really sure. But I do like an aggressive physical defense, and he is someone who fits that. I think at the NFL level, he's probably going to end up being a big safety guy. I think he's best suited to be that third safety, maybe a box safety, getting about half the snaps, maybe nickel snaps in a game. I think if push comes to shove and there's injuries, he can fulfill that safety 2 spot if needed on a team, but I think that doesn't utilize his skills as best as they could. I think he best fits that third safety role. Christopher Smith from Georgia, 5'11", 192 pounds. Again, you're going to hear me say this, that 192 pounds, it comes up. You'll see it. The size issues come up in tackling. That's one of my concerns for him because I don't think he's big enough to be a box safety, but he is incredible to watch. His highlights are a lot of fun. His read and react time and his closing speed is crazy. He really, truly understands what's going on in front of him and just triggers. He just goes. It's like, it's better than Sidney Brown. The problem is that he's just not as good as Sidney Brown. He's not I don't think he's as good of a hitter. I don't think he's big enough. In his frame, he's just light. I don't think he's big enough to be that box safety role where he triggers almost like a linebacker. It's pretty incredible. But I also don't know that he has the speed to be a deep safety. He has some long speed concerns for me at 4.62. I think he might be better off being in a 2 safety system where he can only cover half the field or something like that. But he is a good hitter. He comes downhill and run support very often, but run support. He does struggle to finish tackles all on his own, unless he's going in for the big wallop is the only time that it really happens. And again, you're playing at Georgia is not going to be the same. He's not going to be able to stop Derrick Henry that way. Let me put it that way. I still have him as early day 3. So we're talking round 4, maybe round 5. So not shitting on him too much. I know it says day 3 and it doesn't get too much later than that, but don't take it too much to heart. Christopher Smith from Georgia, I think, is going to get some depth snaps maybe by year 2, but I think by year 2 he might even be a starter. So depending on the team that takes him, their system, etc., his growth. Brandon Joseph from Notre Dame, and I believe Northwestern before that. 6 feet, 202 pounds. This is a guy that I don't think necessarily has to hit the weight room too much, maybe about 8 pounds more of muscle. But in general, he just doesn't look physical enough for me. To me, it doesn't look like he loves to hit. There's another one just like Christopher Smith, where he does have some good quality highlight hits and things like that, but they are often cleanup duty. Somebody else has them engaged, and a lot of times, look, man, for safeties, that's how it's gonna go. A lot of times, but not every time. And I'd like to see people want to hit more. It's not a mega knock on him. I don't think every defender is going to love to hit, but the ones you draft, I like to see that quality. You don't have that quality, you start looking at them like, depth, special teams. Defenders, I want them to hit. But he's responsible. He stays the deepest man in coverage pretty consistently, which means he doesn't get burned over the top too much. I think he has really, really solid back pedal. I think he's pretty good in zone coverage. I think that might be where he's best. I think that with his speed, it's good to close. I think a lot of what Brandon Joseph does well relegates him to a two-safety system where he can be kind of in the box, only covering half the field, exactly like that. Not uncommon. Those single high safeties are pretty rare, but I don't think he's a box safety guy. I don't think he's a nickel guy. I think he's a two high safety guy. I think he'll probably be a starter by year 2. Quan Martin from Illinois. Gosh, we're running long on this one. Sorry. 5'11", 194, coming from that attacking Illinois Fighting Illini defense. He's got the physical tools. The speed is lightning fast. 4.46. That's incredible. At 5'11", I'd like maybe 5 more pounds of muscle on him to get him closer to 200, but he's okay at 195. He's a good form tackler. I think he just needs refinement. This is a guy that just needs to get better at understanding his position and his responsibilities. I think sometimes he plays a little too far off, trusts his speed too much. I don't think he triggers well enough. I think that he's a little slow to read and react, but he does have the speed to help him there. So I think as he develops that skill, and he should hopefully continue to work it and not just bank on it, that will take him over the top. That could make him a real starter in the league. I think that sometimes also he's irresponsible in his gaps. I think he's irresponsible in his coverages at time. I think he can take some bad angles. I think it's just a learning the position kind of thing. And I think that Illinois was so successful just kind of shocking people and blitzing and being aggressive that he was able to get away with stuff, but he also was burned multiple times just not being in position. But he is versatile enough to play the slot, to play the box, to play deep. He's got the physical tools to play deep. He just needs to be responsible and trusted there. He has the upside that could push him to day 2 talent, but the way he is right now, I'm going to keep him as day 3. Round 5, late round 4, I think is where Quan Martin kind of belongs. Last but not least, we have J.L. Skinner. I wrote Kentucky on this thing. It's Boise State. Don't ask. Don't know why. 6'4", 209. Saw him at the Senior Bowl. He is like head and shoulders taller than every other DB. You see it immediately. But unfortunately, that's kind of where a lot of the good stuff ends. For his size, 209 pounds at 6'4", I want to see like 20 pounds more muscle. Seriously, 210 is something I would expect for someone who's like 6 feet and a half. He's got 3 more inches than that. I would like to see 215 is a bare minimum. 220 is a minimum. I would say 225 is closer to optimal for 6'4". I got to see him get bigger. I have some long speed concerns with him anyway, so I wouldn't be too concerned about him getting slower. He's big enough where he can consider a transition to like weak side linebacker or whatever. I don't know. The league kind of is starting to prioritize more DBs on the field. The more coverage you can have, if you're big enough to support and run plays as well, that's going to go a long way. So whatever you want to call that position, call it whatever you want. He should be considering transitioning to that, and in order to do that, he's going to have to bulk the hell up. He's tall and long, and it helps him a lot with coverage stuff. He's able to switch pretty well between playing back deep or playing downhill. I think his ball skills are pretty decent. I think he plays pretty close to the man in zone coverage. That's where he shines the most to me, is playing in zone and playing to the man as they enter his zone. He's very good at that, whereas a lot of college players don't seem to understand that as well. I think that he's irresponsible in coverage back deep, in my opinion. I don't think he should be back deep. I think he fails to consistently stay the deepest on the field, and it's like the number one thing to do as a safety. I don't think he has the speed to recover. I don't think he's physical enough. To top it all off, he suffered a torn pec, I believe, at his pro day. That's going to hinder his year 1 development. As it is, he's developmental special teams value. I have him as day 3. He might go undrafted. I think he's probably, if it weren't for the torn pec, we'd be talking about a 6th-round pick here. With upside, the torn pec might just take him off. I'm not really sure. That's going to do it for the safeties, defensive backs. I will have another video tomorrow, hopefully, on interior defensive linemen. That's my goal for that. I don't know how much more stuff I'm going to get done before the draft, so be sure to follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, again, on YouTube at @football_grump for Twitter and Instagram, football grump for YouTube, and I will be live for the draft all 3 nights on Talkin' Giants YouTube channel, and I believe also the JM Football YouTube channel will be live streamed. So check that out. That's always a good time. Really fun with really, really smart people. Bobby Skinner, Justin Pennick of Talkin' Giants, and Robert Schmitz of Windy City Gridiron, I believe it's called. Regardless, please be sure to like, subscribe, whatever you got to do. All right. Thanks, guys. See you next time.